Peace is good, just don't overdo it. The Buddhists, they got the peace. But they don't have the power, they don't have the wisdom, and they don't have the blood of Christ. So they're floating down Niagara Falls. But the way many Christians act, they're not impressed. Nor is Christ, who has a better view. So the name of this video will be 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 22. If anyone does not love the Lord, a curse be on him. Come, O Lord. So if you don't love the Lord, curse be on you. Be damned. A smart person would realize that that's saying, if you don't obey Jesus, be accursed. Yeah, that's what a smart person would say. But those that love false teachers, they can't understand what that says. They don't, nor do they want to know what it says. Friends, there was a girl I messaged her video, and she described the power, how the power fell on her, and I'd like to know more detail about it. But you need to aim for the power. Paul prays that you'll get the strength and the power. He assumes that if you have faith and great love from the get-go, he's thanking the Father for drawing the disciple to him. So that young lady, I call it lucky, being lucky, because I didn't deserve the power. But according to his purpose, he wanted to use this vessel. Because meritoriously, I did not deserve the gift of calling for God and getting the power. I was essentially a Buddhist, a New Age Buddhist. That was my lane that I would say, well, who are you? If they came into a spiritual sense, it would say, I'm a New Age Buddhist. I asked God, who are you? Who are you? Repetitively for 6 months or so. I looked for God in the desert. I looked for God in books by the thousands. I talked to people by the thousands. I was a cab driver for 25 years in Chicago, so I met plenty of people. And very few told me what I needed to hear. Very few. So hopefully tonight you'll hear what you need to hear. If you haven't had the power experience, if you're not plugged in entirely with the power, then make more effort. You're going to have to get up. Listen, I know this is from my experience with God. I've said this before. He expects to be first in your life. So I'm not going to repeat the story of how he taught me. expects you to be in his word. First thing, for me, it was taught the very first moments for being woken up that I was supposed to study. So that's been a daily practice now for, he let me know he existed, and then about 6 months later, he started helping me with some more day-to-day things. And one of the things, 6 months later, after being notified that he was real, it was a complete surprise to me. I didn't think Jesus Christ was real. Believe me, as blind to Jesus Christ as one could be, I was. So if you don't believe in Jesus right now, from this person's perspective, you take it with it whatever you want to. But there's thousands, if not millions, of others that say the same thing, that this God comes on with you with power and reveals himself. That's not Buddhism, that's not Muslim, that's not any other religion, but this one, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He comes on people with power. I don't believe I was saved, officially put into the book of life until after water baptism for the forgiveness of my sins, which might have been a few years later. So he came on with power about 30 to 60 days. When I say he came on with power, all I'm saying is that he gave me essentially 8 words, and he was gone. He told me 8 words. So that's the type of power. He says what he needs to say, and he left. And I didn't hear it again, and I didn't know I would hear it again from him. All right, the first thing he said was, give away all your things in Jesus' name. Okay, that says a lot. First of all, that's what he told the rich young ruler. And I didn't even know about the rich young ruler, but I was told to give away all my things in Jesus' name. So I was in transition and moving, so the second thing that I heard from Jesus Christ was 30 to 60 days later. 3 words. I was watching things that you shouldn't watch at night, and I heard 3 words interrupt my lust. 3 words. This must end. So when Jesus talks, when I describe the power that I know and have not heard from Jesus like that in a long time. But I heard a lot of things for a few years. I think it was a few years. Time schedule's not that good, but a long time. So the second thing, and you know what I was doing, he said, this must end. And that has ended. That was 9 years ago. That behavior ended that day or that night. When the morning I woke up, I looked at it briefly. I saw how disgusting it was and that he was watching me. So it was turned off and it has not been turned on since. Lust would come back again about 3 years later. That's some power right there. 3 words from God, and I'm cut off from that stuff, that lust stuff. And then 3 years later, I was doing that lust stuff, not with any type of video, but just in my mind, and that was once a week. And I was thinking, I started asking God, how do you defeat this? I mean, I don't know if it's possible to defeat this. It felt like a natural thing to be. You would want something released. So I was feeling guilty about it, and I was asking about it, and he sent me a sign, and that was the official end of that problem. I was pushing shopping carts for a living, and I came across, it wasn't the first time he had sent me that sign, but the day that it was really troubling me, I approached the cart, and it had 3 apples in it. And I thought, well, that's strange. There's 3 apples left in this cart. So I picked up the first one and looked at it. There was nothing strange about it. I picked up the second one. There was nothing strange about it. I picked up the third one, and there was a 1 bite mark out of the apple. So I had my answer that was sin in his eyes and not good. And because I fear God greatly, that behavior officially closed. And since then, out of just focusing on Christ and not focusing on those, just your mind, that's our faith. Our faith is pouring this word, pouring every day, pouring every day, pouring every day, focusing on this, whether it be TikTok, Facebook, keeping your mind focused on the race that you have before you. And anyways, I just don't think like that anymore. It just doesn't happen. So I think it goes furthermore with this once saved, always saved thing. It's possible that someone, even like myself, I don't know. I was saved officially after water baptism, which took a few years to get done because the church is so slow and foolish. So God is very merciful. So I was saved, and I've known God in my run, in this spiritual run. I've known God for 9 years straight. So I know He's there. I know He's around me. So if you see me as being bold or someone that seems confident, I know God and I love God, and I haven't been like will for the Lord. I've not been flawlessly perfect. I don't know what to say about Will. I think Will's good for TikTok because Will. I don't think that Will. Anyway, Will's good for TikTok. Will is striving for full maturity, full restoration. He says he has the verses in his head, which is very helpful for him. So that's good. Good for him. He's got the verses. He thinks he has the will of God in him, and he strives for, he claims flawlessness. He's flawlessly perfect. So good for Will. So once saved, always saved. I suppose that's possible for someone, but it's possible that you could be saved and then you're dead. And um, the Book of Revelation describes that you think you're alive, but you're dead. So he's saying, come back to life. He's still, God is very merciful. He's still trying. He's still faithful. You're not faithful, but he's faithful. But I do think there's a point where if the thorns and thistles, you produce the fruit, and if it continues in your love for the world, you'll be cut off, and you won't be able to return. And if you keep following and listening to these Robert Breekers and these Danny Ladas, I don't think God's with you. You have to love God and be in truth. To be in the Robert Breeker, Porterhouse, Logie Dogie, to be in the Danny Latta camp is to be in a false camp. That's not even. That's the pirate ship. That's disobedience. That's filth. That's a betrayal. That as if it's only what Jesus did. It has nothing to do with his glory. Doesn't shine on me. I'm not supposed to be a bright light and glorify God. Somehow I'm released from that, as if Jesus died so that I can sin, when it's the complete opposite. He wants you to die to your old self and put him on, put his life. You come in through his death, burial, and resurrection of blood, and you have to now work his life. And that's going to take time, which is why once saved, always saved is ridiculous. It's absurd. It's not your faith. Your faith is to grow, to abound more and more in knowledge, in love, understanding what love is. That's the knowledge of Christ. It's, 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is going to describe what love is. We might as well figure out what love is. So, this may be one of the most beautiful displays in our faith. He wants you to love more and more and have understanding and knowledge. This is going to take time. And some of you will reject it. You're not interested. You're interested. You can't even put Christ first in your life. And he's not at your breakfast table. He's not in your talks at tea time. And he's not at your dinner table at night. He's not really, you like to claim him because you want the prize. You want heaven. You don't want hell, right? So, you're one of those that goes against the faith. If you're one of those Danny Latta rebels in your pirate ship, you're pretending. You're claiming Christ, but you deny him by your works. Titus says that. You don't think anything's pure. You don't think anything's holy because your mind is corrupt still. You want to claim Christ because you don't want hell. You don't want Christ, really. You would like to kind of hold on to something, but you're actually just being deceived, and you're being you're a sad case. You're to be pitied and you're to be prayed for. As Paul was praying, and Epaphroditus, I think he was praying that you would be strengthened in the faith. He's praying that you would gain more knowledge so that you can run your race with maturity, with completeness. And of course, this is going to take time. And depending on who you hang around with, if you want to hang around with bank robbers and people that aren't dedicated to God, a little leaven will leaven the whole loaf. And you just won't be found established those that are found established in the faith and are mature, the deacons and the overseers, you're called to live like they do. But we have these rebels in Danny Lauda's camp that say, it is finished, once sealed, always sealed. Um, you know, that's, listen, if you enter the race, you get a number, just like if you go to the 5K in your local town and you get a number, you're stamped with the number to run the race. And at the end of the race, they'll see, oh, this one was one of the ones that was, the angels gather the ones with the sealing on them. They got the number on their chest of the entry. They were running for the race of Jesus Christ. But they failed. They failed. They weren't the ones that did what Jesus said. The good works. They just didn't do it. Some will not even finish the race. Some will head back to Buddhism or head back to the world and have never felt really the power. So this woman was saying how she was demanding God to reveal himself more and more. I think that's a good idea. I think if you haven't felt the power, then I can see why you'd want to cling to Danny Lauda and the rebels and the breakers, and the blood alone, the faith alone. That's just immature. But to be honest, it's not how you're supposed to present yourself in the will of God to please God. You need to understand what pleases God. Discernment. So like a pitcher will go out to throw his baseball into the strike zone. You want to know what pleases God as you live your life every day and throw strikes. Every day, throw strikes. You're not on the corner selling crack. That's like a wild pitch. That's like just, you shouldn't even that shouldn't even enter well, I suppose even that could happen to some people. I suppose that could even happen. And I do think God's merciful, maybe to forgive. I don't know. You're called to stop. Stop. Stop evil. Stop evil. But anyways, yeah, I'm here to tell you, throw strikes. Figure out what pleases God. Okay, not everything pleases God. You need to fear God greatly. He's to be feared the rest of your days. And if you live like a crackhead, or you're a crack dealer on the corner, you are none of his at that time, for sure. You are not living in the strike zone. You don't have the knowledge of what pleases Jesus Christ or the Father. You just don't have the knowledge. That should be even obvious. I'm trying to make an extreme example, but you can't just claim once saved, always saved, and live like a rat on the corner. There's lots of ways to live like a rat on the corner. This is not pleasing to God. You're playing games with a God he's not playing games. He's already demonstrated that he's not playing games. Now, Danny Lauda, he thinks, God's playing games. And Robert Breaker, he thinks God's playing games. God's not playing games. Your reward is going to be hell. It ain't going to be, you didn't get a bigger mansion by the sea up in heaven. No, friend. Stop kidding yourself. Get serious about your faith and your fidelity. A steward of the mysteries of what's pleasing to God. A steward of those mysteries. Christ in you, the hope of glory. This vessel sailing, running honorably home. Honorably, not dishonorably. Friend, you're fooling yourself. You really are. And I hope you stop. Danny Lauda hasn't called me back. He made one little message. I tried to get him. I got his buddy there, Mr. Johnson, Paul Johnson. I got him the other day. And they had to kick me out of the live. I was only on for 5 minutes. Only brought up 2 verses. These guys can't hang. I can't wait to get one of them one-on-one for 60 minutes. Hopefully, 2 hours, it would be better. Just to, every single person, I think we owe it to even each other to debate one another maturely so that we're not all arguing underneath all these videos. And, Robert Breger's never done a public debate. Danny Latta's never been. The Church of Christ is eager to meet Danny Latta. The Church of Christ wants Robert Breger. And that denomination, I don't consider myself necessarily a part of, because I'm not. I believe you should be able to take the USC marching band and bring it right into the last 10 minutes of church. Bring in the USC marching band with all the instruments and blast away with song and instruments. So that the Church of Christ, they have great pride in how they worship God in their building. So I'm not really. I've moved beyond the building thing. If there's anything that's going to happen, it's going to be between me and someone around here. I'm not interested in playing games either. To be honest with you, I'm not your guy for playing games. No. Church is once a week. The people have largely fallen asleep in these buildings. There's a lack of dedication. You're called to become the full product. And even these once saved, always saved churches, if they've totally fallen asleep in Catholicism. There's some good claims of obedience and love for Jesus Christ, to obey Jesus Christ, but they're full of huge errors. And Satan, I think, has created these outhouses on the corner. They don't have the smell of life. You can smell the death of lies and deceit and corruption and even abuse. These have the smell of death. So this is not for me, and maybe for other people, but not for me. I don't mind going in once in a while and hearing a sermon. They all can do a good sermon. But there's not intimacy in the church. They don't bring anybody up before the congregation and say this man has sinned, to shame him in front of the congregation and bring fear into the congregation. Now this church, the modern church lives largely in darkness. There's no fruit inspectors. No one's checking up on one another. No one's concerned with the needs of those inside the building. It's every man for himself. There's no invitations to dinner. The modern church has no common sense. It's failed. So just to get back to love, so you need to know what love is. If you don't know what love is, how are you going to express the love of Jesus Christ? For me, I feel too, if you don't know the power of Christ, if you're in Revelation, you're not going to be able necessarily probably to demonstrate love because you're still not 100% sure that Jesus exists. So that's a huge problem. So try to find Jesus. Ask, knock, show that you love his way. And he'll come for you if you desire. If you desire him, he desires you. All right. So faith without love is nothing. So faith without works of love is zero. I mean, you come in through faith and repentance and baptism and confession and calling. And you should lower yourself before you come to Christ, as low as you possibly can go before you come. Before you get saved, you should lower yourself into your face should be on the ground. And then you should take a bath, calling on his after that, you need to become a student and become practiced and love the way of Jesus Christ and striving for. Train yourself, Paul says. Train yourself unto godliness. You need to make an effort to put on godliness, the divine nature that Peter told you. Peter told you, add to your faith knowledge, goodness, love. Paul said the same thing. That's not Robert Breaker. That's not Danny Latta. That's the truth. So add to your faith. Specifically, the big hitter was love. Largely, this faith is about love. You come in through love, the love of Christ. He gave his life for you, and there's nothing more than anyone could do than to give their life even for their enemy. So he gave you a new life that was born in love. So, friends, you've been born in love. You need to know the love of Jesus Christ and live his loving life more and more. As Paul told you to do it more and more and more. You're doing it, you're practicing this. Some days are better than others, right? But we're trying to throw strikes to please God. You need to have discernment about what pleases God. As Paul prayed for your discernment, throwing strikes, and there may be a day where I throw a ball. The catcher has to catch the ball. It's a little outside of the strike zone. And we're going to come back tomorrow. And we're going to throw strikes tomorrow. I mean, that's our life. We may not have a perfect day. I mean, Will for the Lord has a perfect day every day. He's never thrown a ball. He's never had a ball. The guy's amazing. But some days are probably a ball. I don't know, especially if you're a youth or something, you might get yourself involved. God forbid you get yourself involved in the lusts of youth. I left that, so I didn't come to the faith until 53 years old. I know all about the lust of the youth, and I fear for you. I would hope that you were raised in a Christian home your whole life and you understand that these things are not profitable. So we throw strikes. We fear God. We aim for maturity, full restoration. This takes time. Pouring the Bible daily on your head. Keep it in remembrance, as Paul said. These false teachers would have you believe that the gospel, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 3 and 4, as if that's it. No, that was of first importance. Paul says in chapter 1, I think, of Colossians, this is the gospel. And he wasn't just speaking about the death, burial, and resurrection. He's speaking about a lot of things in the whole first chapter. Who Christ is, what is expected of you. Do not drift from the hope that you have. It's called hope, friends. It's not called a guarantee. You were sealed as a deposit, like as if you gave you had a roofer, you hired a roofer, you gave him a deposit, but you have to complete the work to get the rest of the reward. God's not to be mocked by Danny Latta and Breaker. He's a lot smarter than those two rebels from the swamp that I'm looking forward to meeting. The sooner the better. All right. chapter 13, let's learn about love. He says, if I had the gift of prophecy and could fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Love goes on. Faith comes into completion. Hope comes into completion. But love moves on into eternity. So, love is not, it says forgiving. And you were told if you don't forgive others, you won't be forgiven. You have a consistent pattern of not being forgiven. You're vengeful. You have the wrath, it says here. You're easily angered. You're not long-suffering. You always want to react with violence or a foul mouth. You don't have the love of Christ. And it says here, if you don't have the love of Christ, you don't have anything. You're going to be disqualified. You're not going to get the prize. And your conscience is going to bother you. You're called to go upstairs with a good conscience. Keep your precious hope alive. Don't get stained and spotted by the world like James told you. Love is not rude. Love is kind. Love doesn't delight in evil. You're called to have a pure heart. Love that comes, Paul said in 1 Timothy, the charge of this book is a love that comes from a pure heart. That's somebody that knows how to live in Christ with a pure heart. That's someone that consistently knows how to live in Christ. That's what he's saying is necessary. The second thing he said is to hold a good conscience. He's going to name 3 things in 1 Timothy. The emphasis of this book, 1 Timothy, is going to be love from a pure heart. And then he's going to say, keep a good conscience, keep hope alive. Listen, sometimes I know even some of us will screw up, and Jesus Christ will come back. He will reaffirm his love for us. And then thirdly, he said to have a sincere faith. And some will move off into Mormonism or pre-trib raptures and deny the truths of our faith and move off into dreams of others, new rules, new regulations. They don't have a sincere faith. Some say the resurrection has already happened, and Paul, I think, is throwing them out of the church until they learn to stop doing and to be faithful, to have a pure faith, not faith alone. Just to even keep claiming faith alone when it tells you here, faith without love is nothing. You're just immature. You're not really. You're not in the faith, really. You're not even. To say To say even, I was going to get into today, I'm not going to do it, but I came loaded today with trying to go after people that say no works or no works gospel. That's just, it's pure satanic thing to say. Paul says in Ephesians 4, you must no longer steal, Ephesians 4:28. So anything that Paul said, he'd say, you want to be a rebel, they say, oh no, it's a no works gospel. No, I don't have to obey anything that Paul said. You have to love others. This is, faith without love is nothing. And you say, oh no, I don't need love. I just need to believe in what Jesus did. I don't need to know about your love, and I don't need to do your love, and I don't need to grow and abound in it more and more. I'm a no works gospel guy. No, you're a demon. That's what you are. You're a demon possessed and trapped by demons that are trapped and possessed by demonic tricks of the devil and the devil's desires to take the disciple to hell. These false teachers destroy your diligence, they destroy your straight path, and they destroy your conscience, and they destroy your desire to even know what the faith is in its entirety, thinking that everything's already done, it is finished, a no works gospel, a no obedience to Christ's gospel. I was going to blast it today, but I'll leave that off for another day. I'm not very popular, but we press on. And we know that although we be unknown maybe to the public, we are well known by the power above. So we go on with confidence and in truth. Reject the truth. You want to run with the Daniel Lattos and the Breakers, you're entitled to.